Minister Bekele says in the past year 551 people have been arrested through Operation Chanela. Mango business rescue practitioner Sipho Sono says he will ensure that the process to sell the low-cost carrier is transparent and open. Rwanda marks 30 years since the genocide against ethnic Tutsis and moderate Hutus, where nearly 1 million people were killed in 100 days. And one person has died and several others were injured when an old building collapsed in downtown Harare yesterday. Good afternoon and welcome. We are live today from our studio here in Johannesburg. Thank you very much for joining us. This is The Week Ahead. You can interact with us on social media platforms. It's at Week Ahead and our hashtag is The Week Ahead. You can also call us on 011 714 0680, 0681 or 0682. I am Gustav Bremen. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has met with the Rwandan President Paul Kagame in Kigali. The two leaders discussed the relationship between South Africa and Rwanda. Today, Rwanda will commemorate the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. Many heads of state and government will attend the commemoration. The meeting of the two presidents was focused on the bilateral relations between South Africa and Rwanda. The thorny issue of Rwandese who fled to South Africa after the genocide has become a sore point. The Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, says this is being handled by the UN tribunal. Now let's bring in SABC News international editor Sophie Mokoena live from Kigali in Rwanda, where the commemoration is happening. Sophie, good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us. What has been planned for today and who are there? Any important dignitaries?
Well, earlier on we saw leaders who are attending this commemoration, laying wreaths where you have the memorial site, and we saw many leaders from different countries, including South Africa. We would recall that President Cyril Ramaphosa is here in Kigali. The former President Thabo Mbeki, Graça Machel is also here, and also leaders, the former leader of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. I saw the former President of France, Sarkozy, and also the current leaders in different regions, including the representatives of countries, but also the president of Israel is here. As you know, that Rwanda has got strong relationship with Israel. We also have the former president of the United States of America, Bill Clinton, leading the delegation from the United States of America. Right now, as you can hear behind me, the commissioner of the AU, Musa Faki, is currently speaking on behalf of the continental body. Earlier on, we saw his statement saying that the continent must work hard to ensure that we don't see a similar incident in any part of the continent. But unfortunately, when you look at the situation in Sudan, I mean, people are dying, people have died. And again, we find a very, very terrible, weak AU failing to manage that situation. You have a situation in the DRC, in the eastern part of the DRC, where people are dying, particularly women and children. And therefore, the question is, as we look at these two examples, is the AU up to the task to deal with the current challenges? You also look at the regions such as the Middle East in Gaza, where women and children have been killed. And that is a question that many heads of state and government must answer in terms of, after the Rwanda tragedy, the buzzword or words were never, never again. But here we are, people are still dying all over the world. We saw how helpless was the Secretary General of the United Nations talking about the situation in Gaza. And therefore, indeed, the world has a lot of work to do to ensure that we don't see a similar incident. But unfortunately, people are dying at this moment.
Tell us about the mood 30 years on. Do you get a sense that there is reconciliation between the two ethnic groups there? Have they come together?
I think today we expect that the leaders after this meeting will head to the lunch. But we have leaders coming from different countries who will also engage in bilateral talks, like the president did yesterday with the host, that is President Paul Kagame. And we also are going to speak to the president later today to get his views in terms of what's happening and this commemoration, particularly linking it with what's happening in the Middle East. And of course, we will also ask the president about his meeting with the president of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame. As you know, that there are issues that must be handled and be resolved, as you pointed out in the intro or the PVO, that the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, said that they will discuss these issues, and South Africa is ready to resolve these issues that are causing a strain to the relationship between Rwanda and South Africa.
Thank you so much, Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor, live from Kigali in Rwanda this afternoon. Now, Mango Airlines business rescue practitioner Sipho Sono says he will ensure that the process to sell the low-cost carrier is transparent and open. Mango is 100% owned by SAA. Sono says SAA will not make money from the sale of Mango as the indebted entity has no assets. But he has maintained that the preferred bidder must demonstrate the capacity to restart the airline's operations. The Supreme Court has given the green light for the sale of Mango. Last year, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan raised concerns about the deal, resulting in court battles between the minister and the business rescue practitioner.
Low-cost airline Mango has been under business rescue since July 2021. This follows the airline grappling with its financials to a point of insolvency. The process is still underway as it has been faced with some hurdles. Last year, the Minister of Public Enterprises was taken to court to make a decision on the sale of the airline.
The objection of the minister was based on his understanding of Section 54(2) of the PFMA, which he thought that he could have unlimited time to consider the application for the sale of Mango, for the disposal of Mango, whereas in fact that very same section has got a deeming provision that says if he hasn't made a decision within 30 days, then the relevant state-owned company that made the application is entitled to assume that he has granted that approval. So the court has effectively affirmed that position, and that deeming provision is now already operational. So there is nothing that can be done to change that. So that whole issue of Section 54 now is no longer an impediment to us implementing the business rescue plan.
Business rescue practitioner says engagements with the preferred bidder and investor have resumed.
The investor, to answer your question, is fully on board and is cooperating with the process. And so we are hopeful that we should be able to sign the relevant agreement in the next couple of weeks or so.
The practitioner says they will ensure that the process will be transparent and open.
In the case of Mango, I think we are transparent. We are putting reports on a monthly basis on the website for creditors to see, to understand exactly where we are, for the shareholder also to have a view of where things are.
They also say they cannot give timelines on when the sale of the airline will be complete, as much still needs to be done. Nothando Makutulela, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Welcome back. You're watching The Week Ahead on SABC News. Let's now take a look at the stories that made headlines in the Sunday newspapers earlier this morning. And joining us now from the Eastern Cape is the Herald editor, Rochelle de Kock. Rochelle, good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us here.
Good afternoon, Gustav, and thanks for having me.
Let's start with the Sunday Times today and the story there, Mashatile's big water plan. What do you make of that story?
Look, it's actually quite a controversial one, if I must say so for myself, because we know that the country is experiencing water issues, and in large parts of the country, for that matter, including Johannesburg. And so what the Sunday Times is reporting on today is that the government is actually looking at roping in farmers and a largely Afrikaner civic movement, Solidarity, to see if they can help fix, some of the water treatment plants. This is quite a shocking admission, in that does this mean that the government does not have solutions and is now looking, towards organizations that are, very critical of the ANC policies even to fix it. But I see he does mention that, we need to put politics aside and let's not politicize water and everyone come up with a solution, because I think they foresee a crisis. And what the Deputy President is saying, in an interview with Sunday Times is that we need to get, these companies, we need to all work together, because I think the presidency is trying to avoid a situation as we do, with Eskom and load shedding. And he's saying that if, national government needs to get involved and take over the management of water provision from local council, it's prepared to do so to avoid the same load shedding crisis that, that we've experienced for many, many years.
And then another story on the front page of the Sunday Times, there above the fold, ex-speaker about to find out who talked. That's the big story of the week.
Yes, that was a massive story last week, and I think it'll continue to be so in the week ahead. We know that for the very first time we've had a speaker that was arrested, and facing 12 counts of fraud and one of money laundering. It's a massive story. She was arrested, appeared in court, but I think what the Sunday Times is reporting on today is that tomorrow she'll get to hear who are, the ones that will be, the state will be relying on, which witnesses they'll be calling. And I think that's going to be quite an interesting one, because they speak about some of the witnesses being people with, direct knowledge of what is alleged to have transpired in, the soliciting of bribes. And perhaps bribes is not the correct word, but, it's a bribe, soliciting of money in exchange for a tender. And I think that's ultimately what the state's case is. And so now they're saying that she will hear this week who are the people that are likely to testify against her. And you'll see in City Press, they take that a little bit further with that story. But we'll get to that now. Yeah.
And we're going to move on to City Press right now. The big front page angle is a bit different. Same story, Speaker's demise, how the General's wife scored 1.3 million rand.
Yeah, and that's exactly, what I was talking about. One of the big, names that City Press is coming forward with is that, the wife of quite a high-ranking figure in the military, Lieutenant General Derek Ngwebe's wife, Nolusapo Ngwebe, is apparently on the list of those that's going to be state witness against the former speaker. And they have sort of raised concerns about, because she's alleged to have also received payments, hundreds of thousands. In fact, they talk about to the tune of 1.3 million rand that was paid from the former defense contractor, Nombaso and John Ndlovu, the one who basically blew the lid on this entire matter involving the former speaker. That that former defense contractor was pumping money into the wife of this Lieutenant General's company, as I said, to the tune of 1.3 million rand. And there's now questions being raised as to whether or not, she will be held to account for being complicit, allegedly complicit in this corruption matter. If she's now going to be also testifying on behalf of the state. So it's going to be a tricky one, definitely.
We'll also see a quote there at the picture at the bottom on the front page of City Press from inside the ANC. We could not defend her in a motion of no confidence over corruption charges so shortly before the election.
And that's what it boils down to. I think the ANC was put under pressure here. The ANC had to be seen to be acting. You get the story that, oh no, she resigned of her own volition, which may be true. But the point is that, she was under pressure and she was on the brink of retiring. The ANC could not go to a vote of no confidence. I think it's mere days before the country goes to the polls, and then go and defend a motion of no confidence against her. It was never going to be a good look for the ANC to defend their comrade, and also, just to have it out there front and center. I think it would be set down for the 21st of May. It would be mere days before the elections, and that would be fresh in the voters' minds, and they couldn't afford to do that.
And then moving on to the Sunday Tribune, Durban, and an interesting story, different story. KZN man's damages claim against the UK government. What is that about?
Look, the story is so it seems back to 2015. A man from the South Coast. He was living in the UK, working there. And he was then arrested on suspicion that he had prohibited content on his laptops. And he argued that the laptops were previously in possession of previous employees before it was handed over to him. Nonetheless, he was arrested, and then he was to appear in court, and he left the country. He came back to South Africa, so he missed a court date. And there was an entire process, a legal battle, and there was attempts to extradite him to the UK, and he was then arrested again, and he was in jail for I think 46 days or something like that. And so it's a very convoluted process, but he feels that he was wrongfully arrested and detained, and that the entire case against him is malicious, and so he's taking the UK government on that issue.
Rochelle, lastly, you're in the Eastern Cape at the Herald. What kind of stories are you covering this week?
Look, a big issue for us here, Gustav, is crime in Nelson Mandela Bay. I'm sure you would have known that a recent study found that it's the murder capital of South Africa. And, just yesterday, there were two brothers that were responding to a social media advert on Marketplace for someone saying they're selling a TV set. They went out, these two brothers went out to go and, at the address that was provided. They unfortunately got there. The people at the address said, we don't know what you're talking about. Then two men came, shot them, took their belongings, and they were gone. Two brothers now dead. A 30-year-old and a 19-year-old. And it's an absolutely tragic case. So that is one of the issues. The crime's a big issue in our city, unfortunately, and it's not something that we can get away from. Every weekend we're reporting on just merciless, killings that are taking place in our city, and that's just one of them. So that's a big issue for us here, as well as, it's electioneering, political parties are out and about. Nelson Mandela Bay is always a hotbed of politics. So that's going to be a big story for the upcoming weeks ahead.
Right, thank you so much for joining us today to look at the newspapers. Rochelle de Kock is the editor of The Herald in the Eastern Cape. Now, Rwandans are marking 30 years since a genocide orchestrated by armed Hutu tore apart their country. The killing spree, which began on April the 7th, 1994, lasted 100 days before the Rwandan Patriotic Front rebel militia took Kigali in July of that year and saw some 800,000 people dead. Let's take you live to the proceedings in Kigali now.
Got the chance to be born. Today, we are thinking of you as well. Our tears flow inward, but we carry on as a family. countless Rwandans also resisted the call to genocide. Some paid the ultimate price for that courage, and we honor their memory. Our journey has been long and tough. Rwanda was completely humbled by the magnitude of our loss. And the lessons we learned are engraved in blood. But the tremendous progress of our country is plain to see, and it is a result of the choices we made together to resurrect our nation. The foundation of everything is unity. That was the first choice, to believe in the idea of a reunited Rwanda and live accordingly. The second choice was to reverse the arrow of accountability, which used to point outwards beyond our borders. Now, we are accountable to each other, above all. Most importantly, we chose to think beyond the horizon of tragedy and become a people with a future. Today, we also feel a particular gratitude to all the friends and representatives here with us from around the world. We are deeply honored by your presence alongside us on this very heavy day. The contributions you have made to Rwanda's rebirth are enormous and have helped us to stand where we are now. I want to recognize a few while also asking for forgiveness for not being able to mention all who deserve it. For example, Uganda, which carried the burden of Rwanda's internal problems for so many years and was even blamed for that. The leadership and the people of Ethiopia and Eritrea helped us in starting to rebuild at that time. In fact, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who is here, even served as a young peacekeeper in the immediate aftermath of the genocide. There is Kenya, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo hosted large numbers of Rwandan refugees and gave them a home. Tanzania.
And those are the events live in Kigali in Rwanda this afternoon, the commemoration of the Rwanda genocide from 1994. Paul Kagame speaking there. We are going to go to a break and see you right after this. Welcome back. Uganda's Supreme Court could have the final say on whether the Anti-Homosexuality Act of 2023 will remain on the statute book. This after the Constitutional Court in Kampala declined to annul the law in its entirety, but ruled that some sections violated basic human rights. The court, nonetheless, has not sealed pressure from human rights campaigners and Uganda's main donors from seeking a review of the law. We are joined now by Ophelia Kemichisha, who is a human rights lawyer and LGBT queer feminist. Ophelia, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So the reaction by some of your colleagues that the Constitutional Court ruling is basically a form of state-sanctioned homophobia and that Uganda should brace itself for violence. Do you share these sentiments?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, the law only passed just about a year ago. And since then, we've had multiple cases of attacks, evictions, cases of people being denied healthcare, cases of torture, and so we expect that this will continue because the Constitutional Court ruling is not just a legal one, it also has implications on the way that public perceptions view LGBT people and is likely to increase violations of their rights. So we are extremely concerned and disappointed by the court's decision to keep the law on our books.
Does the law in its current form have broad support among the country's population?
I think that's hard to say because I'm not aware of any large studies that have been carried out. What I can say is that public approval of people is not a determination for their human rights. Human rights are guaranteed in our constitution and by international law, and regardless of how we feel about other people, it does not allow for us to marginalize them. So I think that is besides the point, and it's not a good way of determining human rights. Otherwise, many people we do not like would not have any rights available to them. So I guess the short answer is it doesn't really matter to me. What matters more than anything is that every single person deserves the right to dignity, to be treated with respect, and to enjoy human rights as a citizen of this country and wherever they are in the world.
So the judges also ruled that those who had challenged the law had failed to prove the negative financial implications of the law, or that there had been a lack of public participation in the legislative processes or breaches in parliamentary rules of procedures. Briefly share with us your counter to these findings.
I think that the financial implications of the law are actually quite obvious. We've already had many hesitations from public health funding, and in fact, many activists have pointed out that the decision of the court to annul provisions related to health are a way of the government positioning itself to receive funding from international partners. So there are financial implications. In terms of public participation, I think that the assumption made on the part of the court is that public participation is not that important, or rather that the MPs who made the decision to pass the law were in fact acting on behalf of the public. But LGBT people and their allies are also part of the public, and we feel that our views and our arguments were not properly heard or properly considered, and we think that if they had been properly considered, the House may have come to a different conclusion. But maybe that's a little too late. I think that I insist on my original point that human rights are not a matter of just public debate. They are a matter of law and a matter of principle. Many countries across Africa have, even in different public scenarios, still decided that human rights prevail. And I think that that's our position.
So homosexuality was already illegal in Uganda under a colonial-era law criminalizing sexual activity as against the order of nature. Why do you think the President and Parliament pushed for a new law if the legislation already saw it as an offence, punishable by life imprisonment?
I think that there has been a new moral panic in Uganda and across the continent, and actually across the world. In Ghana, a similar law was passed recently, and there are efforts to pass a similar law in Kenya as well. So this moral panic is caused by, among other factors, anti-rights groups that are based in the US and Russia and other parts of the world that promote the narrative that LGBT people are a threat to the family, to morality, and to children, all which are completely untrue. The truth is that LGBT people live among us, their daughters, their sisters, their friends, and that they are also deserving of dignity and respect. So I think that the reason for that was this misguided attempt to protect children, and we see that the court, making these arguments and drawing from the public comments that have been made around this issue. So I think that it's a new moral panic that's misplaced, and it's also a way to further marginalize people who are already on the margins rather than dealing with real problems that we are facing, like poverty, unemployment, lack of health services, and things like that. So this new moral panic is actually quite concerning, and we are worried that this, since Uganda has sneezed, many countries around us will probably catch the cold as well.
So what does this Anti-Homosexuality Act of March 2023 outline as so-called aggravated homosexuality?
Well, there's an attempt to deny the humanity of people with disabilities. So there is something about people with disabilities as being automatically unable to consent to same-sex relations. There's something about children, people in positions of authority. But again, we reiterate that sexual violence against children is wrong in all circumstances. And in fact, both the Children's Act and the Penal Code Act, as amended, make wide provisions for punishment of people who have violated children, regardless of their gender or sex. So I think that this is another attempt to conflate same-sex adult relations with pedophilia, with bestiality, and other such acts, which we vehemently reject. LGBT people love, like all of us, and deserve, again, respect and dignity.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Ophelia Kemigisha, human rights lawyer and LGBT queer feminist. Right, we'll see you right after this break. Welcome back. Now, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is investigating allegations of collusion between police and those involved in stock theft. Farmers in Khaka Modiri Molema district in Northwest have been exploring many avenues in pursuit of help to end this crime, which they say takes away food from their table. IPID met with all the stakeholders in Pitsane outside Mahikeng.
Farmers say efforts for police intervention were all in vain, hence a request for IPID's intervention.
Ba IPID re ba kopisiwa ke lebaka la gore re bona ile re lile ha re thusiwe mme tshepo ya rona mo go bone gore ba ka re thusa ka gore ba biditse maloba ko holong ya morae mare ba tla re itira bana dintlha tsa rona. So re maketse ka speed ba se ba re bitsa ba re batle gore fa feedback gompieno mo re na le tshepo ya gore go gong re ka le bona.
Local farmers attribute the alleged police involvement in stock theft to the fact that criminals seem to be paying the officers more than the subs. They say this is a cause for concern.
Se se diragalang gone yaanong yana tšhelete e kreiwang ke batho ba ileng gore ra re ke mapodisa a re thusang go raya gore ga ina for bone ba kgotsofadiwa ke ba enewang ke disenyi
Gantse ke ntse ke litedi kgomo tsa ka tsena go tsewa dipudi a tsewa gape morago ga dipudi sena go tsewa ka be ke a go tla pudi tsa ka dithuto tsotlha mo sekeng 16 o tla dipudi tshotse ke be ke a go police station a tsa mo police station tsa ke ripotsa le maphodisa botsa a o bula case ka ke ke bula case ka dipudi tsa ka ditswero a se ke bone tharabollo mo bone ba twa ba tsamaya
ro kwa me wa lwala ke dikgomo tseo le dipudi ba di tshotse re stlhabetse ba ke le ba re tsala dipudi ne ke na dipudi le more than 100 now ke ipitsa ka dipudi tse 10.
The IPID has committed to deal with officers that are found to be involved in criminal activities.
We've made a commitment in the hall to say, let us get the cases of those officers who are involved in crime and who are working with communities. Leave it to us to further investigate and make sure that we try by all means to arrest those criminals, because we need a clean and professional organization of SAPS to deliver and protect our own communities.
According to the police crime statistics for October to December 2023, 793 cases of stock theft were reported in the country. In the northwest, the Mabato Police Precinct in the Ngakamudirimolema district reported 12 cases, while 9 were reported at the Taung Police Station in the Dr. Ruth Sogamutse district. The authorities say they have found out that farmers and alleged criminals have opened cases against each other, which spells possible clashes. They say they will work hard to resolve the matter. Tumelo Stabetsi, SABC News, Makgobistad.
So for more, we now bring in our SABC reporter, Tumelo Setlabesi, who you saw there filing that report. And good afternoon. Just how serious is this problem of stock theft, and how many villages are we talking about? But also, just an estimation, how many animals are we talking about here?
Good day to you, good stuff, and also to our Channel 404 viewers at home. I can start by saying stock theft is what I can call a nationwide problem, because most provinces are seriously complaining about stock theft in their different areas. Like you name your Northern Cape province, you name your Northwest province, KwaZulu-Natal, and also Limpopo province. This is a nationwide to such a point that farmers in the Northwest have saw it fitting to rope in the IPED to come and assist in this matter. So we are most likely talking about a serious number of villages in the Northwest only. We are looking at your Dr. Ruth Sogamutse, we are looking at your Ngakamudirimolema, also areas like, but the one that I can call in Khanyisa. There's also a place called Khanyisa in the Northwest under the local municipality of, the name is just running away. So these are just the serious number of villages that are facing stock theft in our area, Gustav.
Okay. Now, obviously, the presence of IPED at yesterday's meeting means that there's an involvement of the police. What are the farmers telling you about the police? And are there police members that are said to be involved? Are they known?
There are serious allegations, Gustav, of police members who are involved in these organized crimes. The farmers are actually blaming the officers. They are saying because you find a new officer or joining the police, the SABs, few months down the line, they are the best farmers in the village. So you ask yourself, where do they get these animals from? How did they get involved in farming? And now they are saying all these animals that are missing from them, they are actually the ones that are being owned by some of these police officers. And this is what prompts them to group in the IPED, saying, IPED, please, come and assist us, because we've complained a number of times. We've called in police officers. But let me make this clear, that when we speak to police officers, the relevant talking heads of police officers, those who are in charge of the SABs, they did say they are working hard in resolving this matter. It's not like they are necessarily not involved, and it's not all the police officers who are involved in this criminal activity. Good stuff.
So they say that, but have there been any cases opened? What happened? Any arrests? Any prosecutions?
Yes, there has been cases. There has been arrests that have been made, but I can tell you that farmers are not necessarily happy about that, because even the numbers are saying, the farmers are saying, the statistics that are being given out by SABs, they are not necessarily true reflection of what is happening on the ground. Because nationwide, it has been reported that 793 cases have been opened. 12 of those cases were opened here in Ngaka and 9 of those cases were opened in Dr. Ruth Sohomutse Mumpati in Taung. So, but the farmers are still not happy. They are still complaining. Their animals are still continuing to be stolen, and police officers are also involved, according to the farmers. They are alleging that a serious number of police officers are involved in this criminal activity.
Did it seem like the farmers trust IPID? Did they show confidence that at last now their problems can be solved?
I can promise you one thing, good stuff. The farmers are very excited that IPID took a response. IPID responded truly on time. Medical Lady Ntlatseng, head of IPID, when she was there, she did mention that they will take in charge, they will seriously arrest, they will seriously investigate, and those police officers that are found to be involved in this criminal activity are seriously going to be arrested, because they are not here for jokes, because they are looking for a clean SABS that is going to service and protect our communities, not to take and steal from our communities.
Thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon, SABC News reporter Tumila Setlabetsi. We are going to see you on the other side of this break. Welcome back. Now, Emfuleni residents are fed up with the reeking sewer spillage that's been flowing into their homes for the past few weeks. They are demanding government clean up its acts and fix the broken pipes immediately. This comes after Emfuleni local municipality issued a warning to residents to stop drinking tap water after sewage contaminated the local water source. Technicians have been investigating how a collapsed sewer pipeline could have caused the problem. Areas affected by the contamination include Sewage Zone 7, Palm Springs, Beverly Hills, Lakeside and Everton.
It's been days of constant water interruptions, low pressure or dirty, smelly water, making it difficult to drink, wash or even use for daily life. It's had a massive impact on this young car wash manager.
Because sometimes maybe I for a week.
For our car wash, we use a spray gun which needs high-pressured water. So when we don't have water, it becomes a serious problem. We try collect water in buckets at the local stream, but it's simply not enough to help us wash even one car, which means we end up losing business and don't make any money.
So
He's calling on Emfuleni to urgently give them alternative water sources.
Due to their bad water supply, we are asking municipality to help us with JoJo tanks or even for them to bring water trunks to help us fill our buckets and containers.
But if then
the community is fed up. A collapsed sewage pipe left sewage spilling out into their homes and streets. They have no idea when Emfuleni will resolve the situation.
We are having a problem with the sewage in Vaal here, in Sewage. It's becoming a problem because of now. Most of the time in a week we get a problem 2 times or 3 times a week, and then we report each and every time to the councillors, but there's nothing that is happening. Every time we are having this problem and then it's continuously coming in. The problem is the system. The system that we are using, it's an old system. Then we must change the system so that we can come all right because of it's a problem.
The sewage water comes up from the pipes and spills up into our yards. It makes the whole street smelly and unbearable.
Water Crisis Committee, WaterCan, says municipalities' lack of transparency and clear communication is unacceptable. They're calling on Emfuleni to immediately resolve the matter and give prompt, regular updates to affected communities.
We don't have clear communication. So it's not enough for a municipality to say, do not drink the water because there's possible contamination. We need to know exactly what happened. How are they dealing with this? How are they going to make sure this doesn't happen in future? We also want to know the testing. We are asking municipalities that when you have, issues with bacterial and microbiological issues with our drinking water system, people have the right to know.
While the Human Rights Commission says municipalities need to take accountability for the problems their residents face. It's fingered Emfuleni for failing to step up to the plate to fix the persistent water challenges.
The Commission identified the issues with Vaal to be under the critical infrastructure, which meant that if there was nothing done to ensure that the pollution in Vaal is not dealt with, then that there would be lots of spillages and this was going right into people's homes.
Earlier in the week, Emfuleni said the water would be restored and safe to drink after the supply was shut down to allow technicians to investigate. Emfuleni is one of the regions with critical water infrastructure problems, where any water or sewage spillage affects the surrounding communities. 45 of the 48 wastewater plants in Emfuleni urgently need to be fixed, as old pipes have led to poor infrastructure that can't accommodate the sewage coming out. It's a massive financial undertaking that will need a large investment to resolve. Nozindombi Mia, SABC News.
Human rights experts are warning that the armed conflict in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo is threatening to spread throughout the country. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, sounded the warning at a dialogue in Geneva on the security situation in the DRC. Fighting has intensified between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels in North Kivu province since January this year. SABC correspondent Chris Okombringa has more from Kinshasa.
The UN officials voiced concern about the deteriorating security situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They warned that the ongoing fighting between the M23 rebels and the DRC army may widen into a regional conflict. The DRC government accuses Rwanda of backing the M23 rebels, but Rwanda has denied the charge and instead accused the DRC of collaborating with a militia of ethnic Hutus who participated in the 1994 Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis. The DRC army is being supported by troops from South Africa, Malawi and Tanzania to dislodge the M23 rebels from the areas under their control. The battles have forced more than 1 million people to flee their homes. The UN Security Council and some African leaders have called for a political solution to the conflict, but the DRC army and the rebels have continued fighting. Chris Ochambringa, SABC News, Kinshasa.
Right, stay with us. We will be back with you at the top of the hour with the week ahead. The President of Rwanda has called for unity as the country commemorates the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. The police minister says in the past year 551,000 people have been arrested through Operation Chanela. And Mango business rescue practitioner says he will ensure that the process to sell the low-cost carrier is transparent and open. Good afternoon and welcome. We are live today here from our studio in Johannesburg. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the week ahead already in progress. You can interact with us on social media platforms. It's at Week Ahead and our hashtag is The Week Ahead. You can also call us on 011 714 0680, 0681 or 0682. I'm Gustav Breiden. The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, has called for unity as the country commemorates the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. Nearly 1 million people were killed in 100 days. The commemoration is being attended by several heads of state and government. Kagame says the citizens of Rwanda will never forget the tragic event. However, they are working on healing the nation. Mango's business rescue practitioner, Sipho Sono, says he will ensure that the process to sell the low-cost carrier is transparent and open. Mango is 100% owned by SAA. Sono says SAA will not make money from the sale of Mango as the indebted entity has no assets, but he has maintained that the preferred bidder must demonstrate the capacity to restart the airline's operations. The Supreme Court has given the green light for the sale of Mango. Last year, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan raised concerns about the deal, resulting in court battles between the minister and the business rescue practitioner.
Low-cost airline Mango has been under business rescue since July 2021. This follows the airline grappling with its financials to a point of insolvency. The process is still underway as it has been faced with some hurdles. Last year, the Minister of Public Enterprises was taken to court to make a decision on the sale of the airline.
The objection of the minister was based on his understanding of Section 54(2) of the PFMA, which he thought that he could have unlimited time to consider the application for the sale of Mango, for the disposal of Mango, whereas in fact that very same section has got a deeming provision that says if he hasn't made a decision within 30 days, then the relevant state-owned company that made the application is entitled to assume that he has granted that approval. So the court has effectively affirmed that position, and that deeming provision is now already operational. So there is nothing that can be done to change that. So that whole issue of Section 54 now is no longer an impediment to us implementing the business rescue plan.
Business rescue practitioner says engagements with the preferred bidder and investor have resumed.
The investor, to answer your question, is fully on board and is cooperating with the process. And so we are hopeful that we should be able to sign the relevant agreement in the next couple of weeks or so.
The practitioner says they will ensure that the process will be transparent and open.
In the case of Mango, I think we are transparent. We are putting reports on a monthly basis on the website for creditors to see, to understand exactly where we are, for the shareholder also to have a view of where things are.
They also say they cannot give timelines on when the sale of the airline will be complete, as much still needs to be done. Nothando Makutulela, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Over 500,000 suspected criminals have been arrested since April last year during the police's Operation Chanela. Our reporter Nozintombi Mia has more.
As management of South African Police Service, together with the ministry, somewhere last year, when we see that the strategies we're implementing were not yielding result, we came together as management, together with the ministry, and decided on the new concept of Operation Chanela, which we implemented since May the 8th last year. And the operation has been running on, even now it's still running, and it's quite yielding results. We have not reached where we want to be, but we are stabilizing certain areas. There are still some stubborn areas like your Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Those are still stubborn provinces. But at the same time, in the same provinces, we are also yielding some good results. In Western Cape, we have taken down number of gang leaders involved in gangs or extortion. But yes, we have not yet overcome the gangsterism in Western Cape. Hence, we have got an extra deployment from National that is there currently in the Western Cape, assisting in the Cape Flats in terms of crime in general as well as your gangsterism. And in the rest of the country, yes, we have quite a number of takedowns, especially in your cash heist, where we foiled a number of cash heists.
That's an area of success, Police Commissioner. I mean, it was just a couple of years ago, it was running battles that we're seeing on the highways of South Africa between police, and the numbers of CIT suspects being shot, the numbers of police being shot. It was really something out of a horror movie. But it seems as though those numbers have gone down, the CITs along with the ATM bombings. Talk to me a bit about that.
Yeah, they have quite significantly reduced, especially with CITs. We count either 1 or 2 per week. So we think we have stabilized the area, but there should not be any CIT. So that's where we are working towards. And we think our intelligence is doing quite good because we do foil some. We have seen recently the one in Emfuleni, which was intelligence-led from Gauteng, which ended up in Mpumalanga. You have seen in West Rand in Gauteng a month ago, where we also took down more than 8 suspects. In Western Cape, in Eastern Cape, also a month ago, we've taken down 13 suspects of CIT. So we are continuing. We think we are in the right trajectory, and we'll keep on the momentum. And where our police members are engaged, surely they will definitely come out the best, and we continuously will carry on doing that work.
Yeah. The phrase intelligence has been a big phrase that's come out today, and this is an important tool you're using around more niche crimes such as the kidnappings.
Yeah, even in kidnappings, we do have intelligence-led operations, and we seems to be succeeding. There are, yes, some cases where we are still not successful, but in most cases we are. Recently, we had this of siblings in Northwest, which were kidnapped. We have made a breakthrough. We arrested. We also arrested one of our own member of SABS as part of that syndicate. So if he's doing crime, he's a criminal. So we will keep on doing that. And the team is doing quite well countrywide. And but we know that there are those kidnapping cases currently that we are still working on. We haven't made a breakthrough. We know in Limpopo there are, in Gauteng, and there are. But we are determined that we will not stop until we make a breakthrough in those
breakthrough. Speaking of syndicates, the illegal mining situation that dominated the news last year seems to be something that's run by syndicates. How are you tackling that?
Illegal mining, well, it has got various levels. We arrest what is commonly known as zamazamas, those that are digging and processing. We arrest a lot of them, but unfortunately they will always be replaced. But we also went a little bit up where we have identified some of the people that are involved at the high level, where we have arrested. With the Hawks also, we have confiscated a lot of properties, vehicles, and seized property and arrested a number of them. Currently, there is one we arrested in KZN who was responsible for quite a number of areas where he's stealing either be it chrome or other minerals and symphony through our ports of entries. So we think we are making, we have made quite headways and inroads, but yes, it's not yet stabilized. The Mazamas are still there, running battles with the police. Recently in Gauteng, I think yesterday, 2 rifles were confiscated around the area in Rotepur, and we will keep on that fight to make sure that our communities that are living in mining areas live in peace because they are being harassed by these Zamazamas.
Yeah. Before I let you go, National Police Commissioner, speaking of communities, what has the community response been to police's stepped up operations? Are you getting the support of the community, or do you feel there's still areas of work that still needs to be done?
We do have the support of the communities, I must say, and of course the community have got the right to voice their dissatisfaction, like we have seen recently in El Dorado Park and Westbury, where they voiced their unsatisfaction. We have since deployed teams there. I've seen yesterday a lot of mandrax has been recovered, a number of arrests has been done. So we'll step up, and I think at the end of the day, when we end up arresting, because we haven't yet made arrest, I must say, in Westbury, but we are on track. And with the help of the communities, assisting with working together with us, we will definitely make inroads. And we pledge that everywhere in the country, communities must work with the police so that we can defeat the criminals. Criminals are not too many. They are in minute. So if we work together, we'll be able to defeat them.
Thank you very much. I'm going to leave it there. National Police Commissioner Fani Masimole giving us some insights about the work that has been done. But you really get the sense that it really is all hands on deck, and police are doing what they can using intelligence, using technology, speaking and communicating with the communities, working hand in hand with the communities to try their best to get into the heart of where the criminals, the syndicates and the masterminds.
Welcome back. The Electoral Commission of South Africa announced this past week that it would publish the final list of candidates contesting the upcoming general elections on the 10th of April, that's this coming Wednesday, after completing a strict scrutiny process that includes objections. Now, the body managing elections in South Africa, ensuring free and fair elections at all levels of government, had set the 2nd of April as the deadline for the objector, be it a registered party or a nominated candidate, to appeal against the decision of the Commission to the Electoral Court. Now, for more on this, we are now joined by the IEC chairperson, Bosoto Muyepia. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon to you and the viewers. It's good to be with you. Thank you for the invitation indeed.
Now, the looming appeal at the Electoral Court by the MK party comes with many complexities. Particularly concerning is Section 47 of the Constitution, which bars individuals convicted and sentenced to more than 12 months in jail without the option of a fine from holding public office for a period of 5 years then. Now, the disqualification outlined in our Constitution has never before been actively contested with the aim of regaining eligibility for public office. So as a statutory body of the elections, what kind of position does this place the IEC in?
Well, it places the IEC in a position where it would say for certain that it has interpreted the law, or the court will help us to interpret the law properly. You see, when we go to court, it doesn't mean that, there's a fierce battle, we are fighting and so on and so forth. It simply means that we hold different interpretations of the law. And the courts are there to help us deal with this matter. So both ourselves and the MK will be assisted by the court tomorrow.
So parties intending to contest the elections had until the 25th of March at 5 p.m. to revise their lists and inform the Commission if they had nominated candidates who also appeared on the list of another party or who were nominated as independent candidates. What are some of the challenges the IEC has been dealing with in scrutinizing and finalizing these party lists? Take us through some of those.
Well, I imagine that, many people think you just submit, it's a simple process. It's not all that simple. And what has complicated the matter on this occasion is the fact that we do have independent candidates, and the new parties that have just registered, who will require the what we call support or signatures of their supporters. That requirement has been a little bit difficult generally for new parties. But we are pleased to say that, there are 10 independent candidates and over 72 parties that have complied with that requirement. So it does appear as though there are other parties that could not comply, many parties have complied. I think that's the first one. In respect of qualifications, the qualifications have not changed much. You have to submit, a person you nominate must sign a nomination form. They must sign a form that says that they are not disqualified from contesting the election. The kind of thing that you introduce the show with, that you will be eligible to stand, for an election and hold office if elected. And then the deposit and things like that. There have been some parties that have not made it because of the deposit and or nomination compliance to nominations. There have been others that have simply not been able to raise either the funds or find candidates to submit. And many of those have simply not qualified, and we don't have to deal with it. But there are others that had partly qualified. They had their deposit, they had their nominations, but they did not, for example, qualify to stand in the national elections, in the elections of Parliament, in that they did not either put a list for a region together with a list from national to national. And in that instance, there are a few parties that have gone to court. The court had the matter on Friday. It has reserved judgment. We do anticipate that judgment would be, or those judgments would be released early in this week.
How much of a learning curve is it for you now to deal with these independent candidates?
Well, it's always a complication. We have dealt with independents in local government, but we have not dealt with independents in the elections of the national elections or the provincial elections. It is a thing that needs quite a bit of effort. One of the biggest challenges is that you never get to know who is out there seeking to be an independent. One or two people have indicated to us, and we were able to help them earlier on. But many came right at the end and said, I want to stand as an independent. And there's quite a bit of process to get to understand and to comply with. And that is the thing that we have to find a way to deal with going forward.
So elections are now in 7 weeks. What are some of the things that citizens can expect to unfold on the IEC calendar as we near Election Day?
The first is that in this week, as you correctly indicated, the court, all the matters that we have relating to qualifications will be dealt with by the courts. They should be completed by the 9th. So on the 10th, we would know for certain who are the candidates that qualify and who are the parties that have qualified in these elections. We will then immediately seek to commence with the printing of the ballot papers. The next immediate step is that South Africans who would not be in their voting districts on election day, the 29th, will now have the opportunity from the 15th to the 17th of May. They will have the opportunity to inform the CEO that they would not be in the area where they are ordinarily resident and therefore apply for a special vote elsewhere. The special votes that require the electoral staff to either visit someone at home or for someone to come to the office of the presiding officer on special voting day have been open and will close also in May. The first ballot will be cast in this election on the 17th of May. It will be for those South Africans who are admissions outside of the Republic. Their special voting days will be either the 17th or the 18th, depending on the country in which they are. We have done so on this occasion to avoid religious holidays. There are countries that have a Friday as a religious holiday and others that have a Sunday as a religious holiday. So we have open voting to either be on Friday, depending on that country, or Saturday.
When you look ahead to the polls on May the 29th, are there specific areas or issues that you are concerned about? What is your biggest fear as we head into the elections?
Well, we prepare ourselves, for the most toughest conditions. But you know that when you are dealing with 23,300 places that must be opened all at the same time, that must work, alike all at the same time, one or two aberrations may occur. For us, the issue is not whether something could occur or not. Rain could come down heavily. There could be storms. Touch wood, a car that must deliver material may be involved in an accident and so on. Our issue is not that those things don't happen. Is that when they happen, we recover very quickly. And for all of those kind of things, put plans into place. Staff members not showing up, we've got to dig into our reserve and deal with it. But the thing that we really want is that South Africans must be patient. They will be voting on 3 ballots. If they are used to speed, it may be that on this occasion the speed is slightly reduced in that there are 3 ballots and not 2. And secondly, the ballots are much longer than we are used to. That's what we are asking South Africans to please be patient and enjoy, the exercise of the right, more than just checking on, it's taking longer and this or the other. We are increasing staff in voting stations. We are looking at possibilities of speeding up queues, and those measures are well advanced. And so we are doing everything that we can to ensure that come May 29, you will indeed vote in dignity and that you will enjoy that experience.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Week Ahead. Mosotho Moyepia is the chairperson of the IEC, and we will be back right after this. Welcome back. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate is investigating allegations of collusion between police and those involved in stock theft. Farmers in Ngaka-Modiri Molema district in Northwest have been exploring many avenues in pursuit of help to end this crime, which they say takes away food from their table. IPID met with all the stakeholders in Pitsane outside Mahikeng.
Farmers say efforts for police intervention were all in vain, hence a request for IPID's intervention.
Ba IPID re ba kopisiwa ke lebaka la gore re bona ile re lile ha re thusiwe mme tshepo ya rona mo go bone gore ba ka re thusa ka gore ba biditse maloba ko holong ya morae mare ba tla re itira bana dintlha tsa rona so re maketse ka speed ba se ba re bitsa ba re batle gore fa feedback gompieno mo re na le tshepo ya gore go gong re ka le bona.
Local farmers attribute the alleged police involvement in stock theft to the fact that criminals seem to be paying the officers more than the subs. They say this is a cause for concern.
Se se diragalang gone yaanong yana tšhelete e kry-iwang ke batho ba ileng gore ra re ke mapodisa a re thusang go raya gore ga enough for bone ga enough for bone ba kgotsofadiwa ke ba enewang ke disenyi
gantse ke ntse ke lite dikgomo tsa ka di sena go tsewa dipodi di a tsewa gape morago ga dipodi sena go tsewa ka be ke ya go tlha podi tsa ka dithoto tsotlha mo sekeng 16 yo tlha dipodi dithotswe ke be ke ya go police station a tsa go police station tsa ke ripotsa le maphodisa botsa a o bula case la ke ke bula case ka dipodi tsa ka ditswero a se ke bone tharabololo mo go bone batho ba tsamaya
ro kwa me wa lwala ke dikgomo tseo le dipodi ba di tshotse re setlhabetse ba ke ba re tsala dipodi ne ke na dipodi more than 100 now ke ipitsa ka dipodi tse 10.
The IPID has committed to deal with officers that are found to be involved in criminal activities.
We've made a commitment in the hall to say, let us get the cases of those officers who are involved in crime and who are working with communities. Leave it to us to further investigate and make sure that we try by all means to arrest those criminals, because we need a clean and professional organization of SAPS to deliver and protect our own communities.
According to the police crime statistics for October to December 2023, 793 cases of stock theft were reported in the country. In the northwest, the Mabato police precinct in the Ngakamudirimolema district reported 12 cases, while 9 were reported at the Taung police station in the Dr. Ruth Sogamusemumpati district. The authorities say they have found out that farmers and alleged criminals have opened cases against each other, which spells possible clashes. They say they will work hard to resolve the matter. Tumelo Stabetsi, SABC News, Makobistad.
Emfuleni residents are fed up with the reeking sewer spillage that's been flowing into their homes for the past few weeks. They are demanding government clean up its acts and fix the broken pipes immediately. This comes after Emfuleni local municipality issued a warning to residents to stop drinking tap water after sewage contaminated the local water source. Technicians have been investigating how a collapsed sewer pipeline could have caused this problem. Areas affected by the contamination include Sebokeng Zone 7, Palm Springs, Beverly Hills, Lakeside and Everton.
It's been days of constant water interruptions, low pressure or dirty, smelly water, making it difficult to drink, wash or even use for daily life. It's had a massive impact on this young car wash manager.
Because sometimes maybe I for a week.
For our car wash, we use a spray gun which needs high-pressured water. So when we don't have water, it becomes a serious problem. We try collect water in buckets at the local stream, but it's simply not enough to help us wash even one car, which means we end up losing business and don't make any money.
So
He's calling on Emfuleni to urgently give them alternative water sources.
Due to their bad water supply, we are asking municipality to help us with JoJo tanks or even for them to bring water trunks to help us fill our buckets and containers.
But if then
the community is fed up. A collapsed sewage pipe left sewage spilling out into their homes and streets. They have no idea when Emfuleni will resolve the situation.
We are having a problem with the sewage in Vaal here, in Sewage. It's becoming a problem because of now. Most of the time in a week we get a problem 2 times or 3 times a week, and then we report each and every time to the councillors, but there's nothing that is happening. Every time we are having this problem and then it's continuously coming in. The problem is the system. The system that we are using, it's an old system. Then we must change the system so that we can come all right because of it's a problem.
The sewage water comes up from the pipes and spills up into our yards. It makes the whole street smelly and unbearable.
Water Crisis Committee, WaterCan, says municipalities' lack of transparency and clear communication is unacceptable. They're calling on Emfuleni to immediately resolve the matter and give prompt, regular updates to affected communities.
We don't have clear communication. So it's not enough for a municipality to say, do not drink the water because there's possible contamination. We need to know exactly what happened. How are they dealing with this? How are they going to make sure this doesn't happen in future? We also want to know the testing. We are asking municipalities that when you have issues with bacterial and microbiological issues with our drinking water system, people have the right to know.
While the Human Rights Commission says municipalities need to take accountability for the problems their residents face. It's fingered Emfuleni for failing to step up to the plate to fix the persistent water challenges.
The Commission identified the issues with Vaal to be under the critical infrastructure, which meant that if there was nothing done to ensure that the pollution in Vaal is not dealt with, then that there would be lots of spillages and this was going right into people's homes.
Earlier in the week, Emfuleni said the water would be restored and safe to drink after the supply was shut down to allow technicians to investigate. Emfuleni is one of the regions with critical water infrastructure problems, where any water or sewage spillage affects the surrounding communities. 45 of the 48 wastewater plants in Emfuleni urgently need to be fixed, as old pipes have led to poor infrastructure that can't accommodate the sewage coming out. It's a massive financial undertaking that will need a large investment to resolve. Nozindombi Mia, SABC News.
Welcome back. Former President Jacob Zuma and French arms company Thales will be back in the Pietermaritzburg High Court for a pre-trial conference this week to prepare the start of the arms deal case. The High Court last month dismissed Zuma's second bid to remove the prosecutor in the criminal case, Advocate Billy Downer. Whilst the judge in the matter ruled that he would give his reasons at the end of the trial, Zuma's legal team said they intend to once again appeal. Joining us now to talk about what can be expected as the trial resumes is legal expert Mpumelelo Zikalala. Good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon to you and also good afternoon to your viewers.
So firstly, what should we be expecting from the pre-trial hearing? Can you explain that process?
Well, basically, a pre-trial is to determine the state of readiness of both parties. We'd start with the state and say, do you have all the witnesses prepped up? Do you have the list of the witnesses sent over to the other side? Any evidentiary material or statements that should have been handed over, have they been received by the other side? And any requests for further particulars, have those been attended to? And from the side of the defense, which is the former president and also the Thales company, you then say to them, have you received every information that you would require in order for you to be ready when you go to trial? If the answer is yes in all instances, then we look at the availability of the legal practitioners and set the dates. Looking at the magnitude and the number of witnesses in this trial, I think a whole term would be set so that they're able to deal with the evidence in one approach and not to deal with parted matters which are going to, at the end of the day, may cause unreasonable delays to be had.
Should we expect the case to finally take off soon then?
I don't think so. If the defense team is going to say they intend appealing the ruling that was made, I think they're firstly going to find out whether the ruling is appealable or not, the impact of it if they are not granted that particular appeal. If they are, then you have to sit and wait up until the SCA or they come and make that application firstly in the court in which they were denied the application in the first place. If they are denied in that court, then the SCA, after that, the constitutional court, before the matter comes back again to be heard in the normal fashion or manner that they would have been heard in, had no appeal process having taken place. But judging from what the judge was stating the other day, I think the judge is going to be steadfast in saying that take note that this is a ruling. If you have anything that you want to raise or that is of concern to you, use Section 317 of the Criminal Procedure Act and regard this as an irregular step or some step that may lead to any illegality. I'll only deal with your concerns at the end of the trial and not now, because I want to make sure that the trial starts and ends within the shortest reasonable amount of time.
So from your experience, what are some of the avenues that the accused in this matter can still exploit to delay the start of the case more?
Well, I'm not sure whether I would call it delay or you would call it an instance in which they want to explore every avenue so that they are able to protect the rights or the interests of their clients as per their instructions. But they do have an option of saying that we view the ruling which was taken something that could have had finality on the matter moving forward. And even if it wasn't, then we want to register this irregularity or this particular step as something that is not in line with the Criminal Procedure Act. So the Section 317 will then come into effect. And on that basis, if you are denying or do not want to come to a particular conclusion, we are then going to take the matter up to the Supreme Court of Appeals or even the Constitutional Court. I think those are the only things in which they may end up delaying this particular matter, or if they come up with any other application. But I don't think there are any other applications that are there, because the accused in this matter have already pleaded. So it must get underway as soon as possible.
Now, Jacob Zuma lost his appeal to remove Billy Downer as the lead prosecutor. What could this mean for the case?
Well, it could mean that Advocate Billy Downer still stays on as the lead prosecutor. We will still see him there sitting and be the one who's going to do all the cross-examination and all the other things that are there. Remember, though, that the NPA is prosecuting this matter as a team. So it's the team from the National Prosecuting Authority which is going to do all the work, not a certain individual. But his mere existence and mere being there, I think, is solidified and helped us even in the legal profession in order to determine what do they mean when the person says they have no title to prosecute. It does not really boil on the conduct, but it's the technical requirements which are there. Basically, the certificate, full employment as an NPA member of staff and all those things. Other than that, I think the court was quite clear to say there's no prejudice which is going to be suffered by an accused individual if they are prosecuted by someone who may have behaved badly in the previous instances. And anyways, they don't have to like them. So at the end of the day, they are going to be against them. They are going to seem as if they want them behind bars. That's their job, and that's the duty that have been given by the NPA to go and do. So in those instances, I don't think anything is going to stop Advocate Billy Downer from prosecuting this matter.
So why would the NPA stick to Billy Downer? Is it a case of principle, or is it a case of all of his knowledge on this case?
I think it's both. One principle in terms of saying we are not going to be dictated to by the defense as how we are going to conduct our matter. Secondly, is the inherent knowledge that he has. Remember that he is the one that prosecuted Mr. Shabir Sheikh previously, so he knows the ins and out of the investigations, ins and out of the evidence that is there, can be able to interpret the evidence much quicker than any other individuals that are there because he's dealt with it previously. And when it comes to things or instances like your cross-examination and examination in chief, he would have much more deeper and much more comprehensive knowledge as to how to deal with those things as they crop up, other than someone who's going to meet the case at this late stage and tried and put the pieces of the puzzle together. So he does have inherent knowledge pertaining to that. And I think that's why the NPA is keeping him, so that they can be sure to come back with a guaranteed guilty verdict.
Will the fact that this case dates from the 1990s basically complicate matters?
Yes, it will. It covers or it impacts both on the quality and the quantity of the evidence that is there for both parties, by the way. For the state, remember that the burden of proof is that you must prove that the individual is guilty beyond reasonable doubt, meaning there must be no other explanation other than the explanation that you are going to come up with. If there are going to be witnesses that are no longer available, either through ill health, not willing to participate, or some of them have even passed on, it does put your case in jeopardy. Second, when it comes to evidentiary material, unless you have protected it all this time, some of it may get lost, it may get damaged, or the chain in terms of the preservation of that evidence may have been broken. And once that has taken place, it makes it very difficult for the state to prove its case. Also from the side of the defense, if your witnesses are no longer there to prove whatever allegations that you are coming up with or to substantiate your defenses, then it does make a bit of an issue. So I think it's in the interest of both parties that this matter must start and end within the shortest reasonable amount of time, also sticking to what the Constitution is saying in terms of the rights of the accused. But that cannot be done at the instance or at the prejudice of either of the parties, which is why I think they are all fighting to make sure that the procedural aspect for this matter to be heard must be right for both parties, but most importantly, their rights and interests must be protected at all times.
Thank you so much for joining us here on The Week Ahead. That's the legal expert, Mpumbulelo Zikalala, and we will see you on the other side of this break. Back. Human rights experts are warning that the armed conflict in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo is threatening to spread throughout the country. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, sounded the warning at a dialogue in Geneva on the security situation in the DRC. Fighting has intensified between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels in North Kivu province since January this year. SABC correspondent Chris Okmringa has more from Kinshasa.
The UN officials voiced concern about the deteriorating security situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They warned that the ongoing fighting between the M23 rebels and the DRC army may widen into a regional conflict. The DRC government accuses Rwanda of backing the M23 rebels, but Rwanda has denied the charge and instead accused the DRC of collaborating with a militia of ethnic Hutus who participated in the 1994 Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis. The DRC army is being supported by troops from South Africa, Malawi and Tanzania to dislodge the M23 rebels from the areas under their control. The battles have forced more than 1 million people to flee their homes. The UN Security Council and some African leaders have called for a political solution to the conflict, but the DRC army and the rebels have continued fighting. Chris Ochamringa, SABC News, Kinshasa.
Now, South Africans are in for a cold and wet week ahead as an intense low-pressure system is expected to herald widespread showers and thunder showers across the country. The weather is expected to continue into the week, and the South African Weather Service said the weather system, also known as a cut-off low, is notorious for causing flooding, damaging winds and severe thunderstorms. Motorists are being urged to drive carefully. Now let's get the latest. I'm joined in studio by Mpora Simpi from our weather desk. Mpora, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here.
A pleasure to be here.
Are we going to see a lot more cold, rain, snow perhaps?
Definitely. Look, it started as a steep upper trough yesterday. Now just developed into a cut-off flow today. That is why we're expecting all those showers and thunder showers, mostly over the central parts, moving towards the interior of the Western Cape. That is where the most effect will be felt from today towards the beginning of the week.
Is this weather seasonal? Is it abnormal? The Cape Townians are talking about an early winter. Are we even seeing lots of rain in the interior of the country?
Definitely not an early winter. Look, cut-off lows actually is their prime during April. We get them in autumn and spring. Most of them we get them in April. If you remember, we go back towards the KZN flooding. We got them during the early when autumn kicked in. So this is actually the normal system that we're expecting in April.
What kind of damage can this weather cause?
Look, definitely. Look, in terms of rainfall, remember, when roads, structures can actually be damaged because we're talking heavy rainfall, persistent rainfall that is falling in one area for a long time, prolonged time, widespread, that will cause flooding. And also, with this system also brings strong damaging winds. If you check, we're expecting wind speed of up to 75 kilometers per hour, can gust up to 85 kilometers per hour. So we're talking damage to structure mostly, and also making it difficult on the roads.
So apparently this warning was upgraded by the Weather Service at some point over the weekend to a level 9 or something like that. What does that mean? Is that the highest warning?
No, that's not the highest warning, but it is a serious warning. It will cause severe. Remember, when you talk about warnings in terms of level, we're comparing the likelihood of the system happening or the event happening with the impact of the system. So when you talk about a level 9 warning, we're talking about a high likelihood of the event happening, and it will cause severe damage over those areas. The level 9 is actually issued for tomorrow over the Western Cape. That's what we're going to be expecting disrupted rainfall tomorrow, which will definitely cause widespread flooding over those areas.
So those are the warnings for today. I see the level 4 there as well. Yes. That's for the east of the country as well. So yes, it's rain all over.
Yeah, definitely rain all over. Remember, for today the system is over the central parts of the country, but it is expected to move southwards, meaning that from tomorrow most of the damage will be expected as we move into that interior of the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and also parts of the Northern Cape.
Okay, and we know that some areas and settlements in the Western Cape specifically, they're prone to flooding and so on. Level 6, there we go. That's a level 6 warning coming in later. Winds.
Yeah, definitely. And also, on that note, we also had an advisory from the South African Weather Service of a storm surge. Yeah. And by storm surge, that's when we get a lot of water from the ocean pushing in because of strong winds that are coming in from the ocean. So we do have a possibility of a storm surge where we have that level 9 warning, where we have it tomorrow over the Cape Gallas and surrounding areas.
So what is your crystal ball telling you for the rest of the week? What can we expect?
Look, I'm expecting the system to actually, it is slow moving, which is dangerous, because remember, when it's slow moving, it means that it can rain on one area for a long time. So I'm expecting it to continue for tomorrow and Tuesday. We should start to see a little bit of clearing on Wednesday, and around Friday, it should be clear and sunny.
Is it just rain or cold as well?
Definitely cold. Remember, cut-off flow is actually known to drop temperatures significantly over those areas. So we do expect temperatures to drop, maximum temperatures to drop below 20s over the southern parts of the country, but mostly expecting it over the Western Cape and also moving towards the Eastern Cape, parts of Free State, but here in Gauteng, Limpopo and Mpumalanga, from tomorrow towards Tuesday, temperatures should pick up a little bit as the system will be going southwards.
So you're talking about cold, but not snow cold?
No. We did have a little bit of snow in the high-lying areas over Lesotho, moving towards Maletswai and Konami. We had a little bit of snow there, only in the high-lying areas. Nothing disrupted, nothing going towards the mountain passes, just on the tips.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us here and telling us more about this weather. This level 9 warning that is coming up tomorrow there in the Western Cape, if you're in that area. The Cape Town coast, it's the whole coast, from the Saldanha area down, it's the whole coast, that whole area.
Yeah, definitely. With this purple that you see over Cape Galas and surrounding, that is 100% chance of showers and thunder showers, meaning that it is raining and it will definitely rain the whole day over those areas, meaning that persistent rainfall in one area, so that will cause damage, lots of damage over those areas.
So for that, you don't need a crystal ball. You know 100%.
Definitely 100% it will be raining over Cape Galas and surrounding areas in the next couple of days.
Thank you so much for joining us here, Mpora Simpi from the SABC Weather Desk, joining us this afternoon. Right, that was the week ahead, and we will leave it for today. The news continues after this. From myself and the team, take care.